3 out of every 8 older widows in this country are getting a smaller Social Security check right now, and almost none of them know why. It's not something they did. It's not a penalty, not a scam, not a mistake on their paperwork. According to Social Security's own research, about 37% of aged widows have a reduced benefit for one reason: the decision their husband made years earlier about when to start his own check. He's gone. The decision isn't. It's still landing in her mailbox every single month, smaller than it had to be for the rest of her life. So here's the honest check on the most common assumption in retirement, that when you claim Social Security, you're deciding your own check. You're not. You're deciding too. I'm Jeffrey. On this channel, we take the retirement claim everyone's heard and check it against the actual rule, from the agency that wrote it, with the receipt on screen. And this one is the claim nobody even says out loud, because everybody just assumes it, that your Social Security claiming decision is about you. Every calculator, every "should I claim at 62 or 70" video, runs the math for one person. How much do I get over my lifetime? But if you're married, that math is only half the decision. The other half is a check you will never cash, the one your husband or wife lives on after you're gone, and the age you claim sets it. Here's the mental model, and it's just 2 checks. Every Social Security claiming decision writes 2 of them. Check 1 is the obvious one, the money you start drawing when you claim, the number every calculator shows you. Check 2 is invisible. It's what your surviving spouse will draw after you die, and its size is decided by the exact same choice. And I'll put real dollars on it in a minute. But here's the shape. For a typical higher earner, the difference between claiming early and waiting can be your widow living on something like $1,700 a month versus $3,100. Same person, same death, for 20 years. That gap is check 2. Claim early and you shrink it permanently. Delay and you grow it. But almost nobody sees check 2 because you're not around to collect it. Your spouse is. So here's the one thing I want you to hold on to for the next 20 minutes, and I'll repeat it until it sticks. You're not choosing your check. You're choosing 2. Let me put a real couple on this. Meet Frank and Carol. Frank's the higher earner. 38 years at the same company. His Social Security is about twice what Carol's is on her own record. Frank turned 62 last month, and he's about to file. His reasoning is completely normal. I paid in my whole life, I want my money, and honestly, who knows how long I've got. So he claims at 62, locks it in, and on his own terms, it's a defensible call. He gets his check 4 years early, he enjoys it. Nobody can say he was wrong to want his own money. But Frank just made a decision about Carol's income for the rest of her life, and nobody in that Social Security office is going to stop him and explain it, because the form only asks about Frank. And I want to be fair to Frank, because this isn't about calling him foolish. Claiming at 62 can be exactly right, if he's in poor health, if they need the money now, if Carol has a big benefit of her own. Those are real reasons, and I'm not going to pretend they aren't. The problem isn't that Frank claimed early. The problem is that Frank thinks he made a decision about Frank. He didn't. He made a decision about the check Carol will live on for maybe 20, 25 years after he's gone. And he made it without ever being told that's what he was doing. And here's the part that should bother you most. The one tool everyone uses to make this call. The break-even calculator, the thing that told Frank to claim at 62, is quietly lying to him. Not broken, lying. Stay with me, because once you see why, you can't unsee it. But first, the rule that decides Carol's number. Start with the rule that surprises people the most, because everything else builds on it. When one spouse dies, the survivor does not get both Social Security checks. Social Security says it plainly. You get the higher of the 2, and the payments are not added together. So picture Frank and Carol both getting their checks. His big one, her smaller one, 2 checks coming into the house. The day Frank dies, one of those checks stops. Carol keeps the bigger one and loses the smaller one entirely. Her income doesn't go down a little. It drops to a single check. And which check survives? His. The bigger one. Which is exactly why the size of Frank's check isn't really about Frank. It's about the floor under Carol for the rest of her life. Now the rule that actually does the damage, and it has a name, the widow's limit. Here's how it works. Carol's survivor benefit is capped. She cannot get more than Frank was actually getting when he was alive. Read that again, because it's the whole video. Her ceiling is his check. So, when Frank claimed at 62 and locked in a reduced check, call it 30% smaller than it would have been at his full retirement age, He didn't just reduce his own income for a few years, he set the ceiling on Carol's income for the rest of her life at that reduced number. Social Security's own rule puts a floor under it. She can't drop below 82.5% of his full benefit amount. But that floor is well below what he could have left her. He thought he was pulling his check forward 4 years. What he actually did was hand Carol a permanently smaller check. Let me put rough dollars on it, and I'll flag these as illustrative. Round numbers to show the shape, not your exact amount. Say Frank's full retirement age benefit would have been about $2,500 a month. He claims it's 62 instead, and the standard early reduction knocks it down roughly 30%. So he starts around $1,750 a month. He's happy, the checks are landing. Now walk it forward 15 years. Frank passes away. Carol, whose own benefit was smaller, steps into his survivor check, and the widow's limit caps her near what Frank was actually getting. That's $1,750, give or take. Now run the other timeline, the one where Frank waited until 70. His check grows with delayed credits to somewhere north of $3,100 a month, and Carol inherits that. Same couple, same death. The gap between Carol living on $1,700 versus $3,100 a month for 15 or 20 years is the entire cost of a decision Frank made at 62, thinking it was only about him. That's not a rounding error. Over her remaining life, that's 6 figures. And this isn't a rare edge case, it's the single most common way this plays out. Remember that opening number? In Social Security's own research on the widow's limit, about 37% of aged widows, that's the figure the agency's analysts put at roughly 3 million women, as of that study, were getting a reduced survivor benefit for one specific reason. Their husbands took early retirement benefits. Let that land. It's not a scam, and it's not a rule anyone hid. It's right there on Social Security's website. It's just that 37% of husbands ran the math for one person, claimed early, and left behind a smaller check their widow never chose. That's not a horror story, I'm telling you. In Social Security's own numbers, that's the base rate. If you just got here, here's the whole thing in 30 seconds. 1. When a spouse dies, the survivor keeps the higher of the 2 checks, not both. So household income drops to a single check. 2. That surviving check is capped at what the higher earner was actually getting. So claiming early doesn't just shrink your check now, it caps your widow's check for life. 3. In Social Security's own research, this is already the most common way it plays out. Not a rare case, the base rate. You're not choosing your check, you're choosing to. Now let me show you the other direction, because this rule cuts exactly the opposite way when you use it on purpose. Here's the part that turns this from a warning into a tool. The widow's limit runs both directions. If claiming early caps the second check, then delaying raises it, permanently. When Frank waits past his full retirement age, Social Security adds delayed retirement credits to his benefit, 8% a year, every year, up to age 70, for anyone born in 1943 or later. And here's the piece almost nobody connects. Those credits don't just grow Frank's check. Social Security's rules say they pass straight through to Carol's survivor benefit. So every year Frank delays isn't just a bigger check for him, it's a bigger check for Carol for the 20-plus years she may outlive him. For the higher earner in a couple, delaying isn't mainly about your own break-even. It's the most powerful thing you can do for the person you leave behind. Quick, but important, because this is where people get tangled. There are actually 2 different spousal things, and they are not the same. While you're both alive, there's a spousal benefit. The lower earner can get up to 50% of the higher earner's full benefit, if that's more than their own. That's a living benefit, and it's capped at half. Then there's the survivor benefit, after one of you dies, and that one goes up to 100% of what the deceased was getting. 50% while you're both here, up to 100% once one of you is gone. People hear, "I'll get my husband's benefit," and picture the wrong one. The survivor benefit is the bigger, later one, and it's the one the widow's limit governs. So when we talk about protecting check 2, we mean the survivor benefit, the up to 100% one, not the 50% spousal benefit you might draw while you're both still. Meet the other couple, the Delgados. Same setup. Miguel's the higher earner. Rosa's benefit on her own record is smaller. But Miguel saw check 2. He's healthy, they don't desperately need the money at 62. And Rosa is 4 years younger than him, and the women in her family live into their 90s. So Miguel does the thing that feels almost wrong. He waits. He claims at 70 instead of 62. Yes, he gave up 8 years of checks he could have taken. But look at what he bought. His own check is far bigger now, and when Miguel dies, likely a decade or more before Rosa steps into that bigger check and keeps it for the rest of her life. Miguel didn't optimize his break-even. He optimized Rosa's next 25 years. Same rule Frank ran into. Opposite result. The only difference is that Miguel knew there were 2 checks. Now the thing I promised you. Why that calculator is lying to Frank. And it is, even though nobody built it to. So why does almost everyone get this wrong? Because of the tool everyone uses. The break-even calculator. You've seen it. You put in your benefit at 62 and your benefit at 70, and it tells you the age you'd have to live to for waiting to pay off, usually somewhere around 80 or 82. And if you don't expect to make it much past that, the calculator basically says, claim early. Here's the problem, that calculation is built for one life. It quietly assumes the checks stop when you do. But for a married couple, the higher earner's check doesn't stop when he dies. It continues as the survivor's benefit on his wife's life. So the real break-even isn't measured against his life expectancy. It's measured against whichever of them lives longer. And for a couple, that's almost always years later than either one alone. The calculator gave Frank a break-even age of 81, and Frank thought, I'll be lucky to hit 81. But the money doesn't care when Frank dies. It cares when Carol dies, and she's 4 years younger and healthy. Run the break-even on one life, and you'll claim early almost every time. Run it on the couple, and delaying wins far more often than the calculator ever tells you. The tool isn't lying on purpose. It just only knows how to count one person, and you are not one person, you're 2. Every calculator you've ever used to make this decision quietly forgot your spouse. That's the whole trap in one sentence. So, who does this actually change the decision for? Be honest with yourself about which seat you're in. If you're the higher earner, usually, statistically, the husband, your claiming age is the single biggest lever you have on your spouse's income after you're gone. That's you. If you're the lower earner, the likely survivor, often the wife, the number you'll live on for decades is being decided right now, maybe by someone who's about to walk into a Social Security office without reading this. You need to be in that conversation. And if you're genuinely single, no ex-spouse of 10 years or more, then honestly, this one's lighter for you. It really is mostly your own check. But don't tune out yet, because there's a version of this for divorced people that catches almost everyone off guard. Let me say the quiet part plainly, because it explains why this keeps happening to the same people. This trap lands on women over and over, and it's not an accident of who's unlucky, it's demographics stacking the same way every time. On average, women live longer than men, so in most couples, the wife is the survivor. Women more often were the lower earner, so his check is the bigger one, the one that survives. And wives are frequently a few years younger than their husbands, which stretches the widowhood out even longer. Put those 3 together, and you get the same story in millions of households. The husband, the higher earner, makes the claiming decision. The wife, younger and longer lived, is the one who lives on the result for 15, 20, 25 years after he's gone. That's why the widow's limit shows up as a widow's problem in Social Security's data and not a widower's. It's not that the rule targets women. It's that the rule caps the survivor, and the survivor is usually her, which means if you're the husband watching this, the person you're really making this decision for is sitting in the other room, and she may outlive you by longer than you think. And if you're the wife, this is the number that becomes your entire retirement one day, decided by a form you might never see. That is exactly why both of you need to be at the table for this one. Here's the part nobody expects. If you were married for at least 10 years and then divorced, you may have a survivor benefit on your ex-spouse's record, and it works a lot like a marriage that never ended for this one purpose. If your ex-husband was the higher earner and he dies, you can be entitled to a survivor benefit on his record, capped and calculated by the same rules, including those delayed credits if he waited. Claiming on your ex does not reduce anyone else's check, not his, not a current spouse's, not the new wife's. And here's the one that trips people up. Whether you can keep it depends on remarriage and age. Remarry before 60, and you generally lose the survivor benefit on your ex. Remarry at 60 or later, and you generally keep it. That single birthday has changed people's income by hundreds of dollars a month, and almost no one plans around it. So if you were married 10 years and divorced decades ago and never remarried, That ended marriage still counts, and Social Security will not call to tell you. You have to ask. One more piece, so the number is honest. A survivor benefit isn't a flat 100%. If Carol takes it at 60, the earliest she can, it's cut to about 71.5% of Frank's check. If she waits until her full retirement age for survivor benefits, and that age is a little different from the one you're thinking of, so check yours on Social Security's site. She gets the full 100% of what Frank was getting. So the survivor has her own timing decision on top of everything else. But notice, every one of these percentages is a slice of Frank's check. 71.5% of a bigger check still beats 100% of a check he shrank at 62. It all comes back to the size of check 2. And that was set years. So what's the verdict on your Social Security claim is your own decision. Misleading. And for married couples, it's the expensive kind of wrong. It's not your check. It's two checks. The one you draw and the one you leave. For most of the couples I've ever looked at, the biggest lever on lifetime household income isn't the lower earner's decision at all. It's whether the higher earner protected the second check or quietly capped it. And the cruel part is how invisible it is. Frank felt smart pulling his money forward at 62. Carol won't feel the cost for 15 years, and when she does, there won't be a form to fix it. There's no undo button on a survivor benefit. By the time she's the survivor, the decision is decades old and permanent. That's what makes this different from almost every other retirement mistake we cover. Most of them you find out while you can still act. This one hands the bill to the person least able to do anything about it at the worst possible moment and calls it settled. The window to protect the second check is now, while you're both here and both of you can still choose. And there's a decision the survivor herself controls, which most people miss in the grief of the moment. Carol doesn't have to take the survivor benefit the instant Frank dies. If she's at least 60, she can, reduced. But if she has enough other income to wait, letting the survivor benefit grow to her full retirement age gets her the whole 100% instead of the 71.5% she'd get at 60. Here's the sophisticated move almost nobody knows. A survivor can sometimes take one benefit first and switch to the other later. She might take her own smaller retirement benefit early and let the survivor benefit sit, or take the reduced survivor benefit and let her own grow, because unlike a living person, a survivor is allowed to switch between the two. The rules are genuinely intricate here, and this is exactly where a good advisor earns their fee. But the headline is, even after a death, there's still a timing lever, and the person who's grieving is usually in no state to see it, which is one more reason to have the whole conversation now, while you're both here. Let me be concrete about who this does not stop, because I don't want anyone hearing always wait. Claim early if your health is poor. The second check does you no good if the math assumes years you won't get. Claim early if you genuinely need the income now, and the alternative is debt. Claim on the lower earner's record early if it makes sense, while the higher earner delays. That's a real strategy. One claims, one waits. And if both spouses have big similar benefits, the survivor gap is smaller, and this matters less. The rule isn't delay. The rule is, run the math for two people before you sign, not one. That's the whole video. Not wait. Count both checks. Here's what to actually do, and it's one login. Both of you go to ssa.gov, the real one, and open your My Social Security accounts, one each. Look at the higher earner's estimated benefit at 62 versus at 70. That gap, that difference between the early number and the delayed number, is the raise or the cut you're handing the survivor for life. Then have the conversation you were never prompted to have. Not, when do I want my money, but, which of us is likely to be the survivor, and what check do we want them living on? If you're divorced after a 10-year marriage, add one call to Social Security to ask what you're entitled to on your ex, because they will not call you. One login, one gap, one honest conversation. And the part I always do, because you've been sold enough fear this year. 3 things not to panic about. 1. This is not the government cheating widows. The widow's limit is a published rule on Social Security's own site. The failure isn't a conspiracy, it's that nobody runs the calculator for 2 lifetimes. 2. If the higher earner already claimed early, it is not a catastrophe, and it is not always wrong. Sometimes it was the right call, and there may still be moves for the lower earner's own claim. You didn't ruin anything. You just want to know the real picture. And 3, You do not need to become a Social Security expert. You need one login, one number, the higher earners check at 62 versus 70, and the willingness to decide it as a couple. One honest note: this is educational, not personal financial advice. I don't know your health, your benefits, or which of you will be the survivor, and all three change this answer. Run your own numbers, or take them to somebody who will look at both of yours together. What I can tell you is what's written down. When you claim, you're setting 2 checks, not one, and the second one outlives you. Don't optimize the check you'll cash. Protect the one you'll leave. If this was useful, do one thing. Send it to someone who's deciding when to claim. That's worth more to them than it is to me. Next time, the retirement account the government forces you to empty whether you need the money or not, and the tax trap that springs the year it starts. Check the rule, not the slogan. I'll see you then.